I don't want this to become like a mean podcast, but Seth Abramson is really irritating me.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't worry about it getting too mean, particularly as it pertains to Seth Abramson.
I feel
There's
like
probably
he can take
no
it.
amount of low we can go.
I mean, he is an expert litigator, so I feel like he can take it. He's obviously has a strong courtroom presence, and he can withstand some criticism, I feel like.
Well, he pissed me off with this idea that having practiced law for 6 years at the Nashua, New Hampshire public defender, he can now sense crime like some sort of superhero. And he knows when anyone's lying, and he knows when criminality is occurring. And quite honestly, I found that somewhat offensive.
I mean, I especially found it offensive that he comes at it from the perspective of a guy who spent his career in criminal defense.
Right.
And what he took away from it is a keen sense of the guilt of the criminals he was forced to spend time with.
It's the worst superhero origin story ever.
I worked in the Orange County Public DA's office and as a clerkship, and within 2 weeks it made me the person that I am today and drove me to the public defender's office the very next semester. I don't know how you can practice there for 6 years and come out and believe that you're Gruff the crime dog or whatever, but he seems to have accomplished it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the guilt or innocence of your client is entirely beside the point. It's not his job to figure out if they did it or not. It's his job to defend them. So, I got a little irritated. So when friend of the show, Woke Hoover, was going in on him on Twitter the other day, I had the occasion to take a look at his resume and noted that among the very first accomplishments he cites is the fact that he's got a verified account on Twitter.
Certified account.
Which he doesn't even. He says he's got a certified account. Right. Like as if he's got something on the wall that has like Latin phrases. Twitterum accountum. and I mean, the whole idea that he brags about being verified, which just sort of puts him up there with like Baked Alaska.
Richard Spencer.
Right.
I mean, it's not even an accomplishment anymore.
Well, didn't Milo threaten
to jump through?
Didn't he threaten to sue the federal government he was whining in a press conference about losing his check mark at some point? So it's it's a vested right at this point. I mean, you could.
Milo did try to establish a property right to your Twitter verification, right? Didn't he crash a White House press conference?
He was at the White House, for a reporter or a journalist or whatever he might claim to be, something of a seminal moment in your career, and he chose to raise his hand and ask if he could get his Twitter verification back from the president.
He put that he was a judge for the Rhode Island, like the rest of these fellowships and honors are absolute bangers also. Like judge for the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts Fellowships.
Well,
wow.
But that's relevant. That's really what irritates me. So the guy practiced law for 6 years in a very grueling and thankless corner of the law, quite honestly, and he should be commended for that. But then did what we all have dreamed of when we've been litigating or doing whatever awful, because this job is just not that exciting. Went and got a PhD, got the dream job of teaching writing to undergrads in bucolic New Hampshire, and now wants to pretend like that's not his job. That he's actually a professor of law. He was holding himself out as a professor of law for a while. Now it's legal advocacy. But the fact is he's teaching writing to undergrads, which I would love to do and would be thrilled and honored to do. But unfortunately, he has to pretend to be, as Stefan said, McGruff the crime dog.
Yeah, like everything about his resume is like good objectively, but not good enough for him in his broken brain. And so he's got to like beef up everything, right? Like he's a guy who went to the Iowa Writers Workshop and got a PhD at Wisconsin. That should be good.
That's amazing.
You should be proud. And he can't leave it at that, right? So he's got like his resume is like thicker than the tax code because he includes every blog post for HuffPo as like an independent article. He lists press contacts. This was one that killed me. He was put in the shit account tournament because of course he was.
Because he has a bad
and
account.
so Luke O'Neill decided to write, an article, like seeing if he could get reactions from people in the shit account tournament. So he emails Seth Abramson, and he's like, what do you think about this? And Seth Abramson writes back with like a one-line reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide, right? He just basically writes back 42.
Nerd.
Right.
Nerd.
But I got the reference, so I can't call him out.
So did James.
Right, but then on his CV, it lists the article that Luke eventually put in Playboy, even though Luke didn't quote him.
He refused to answer the question, and that made it on his resume.
So his answer was dumb, and so he didn't include him. And when Luke called him out on Twitter, his response is to say, oh, well, I just thought it was a waste of my time, so I didn't give you anything you could use, but I got something I could use, which means he's bragging about explicit resume padding. Right? And he even fudged the art. Like, I don't know, maybe Luke ultimately titled it SAT 2017, but I gotta figure Playboy is willing to run the word shit.
I'm pretty sure that they did. So
he just cut out the title because he couldn't put shit account tournament on his own resume. So it just says SAT 2017. So he's bullshitting within bullshitting within bullshitting. It's like the layers go so deep.
Shit account tournament is one of the only things I think that he's omitted from his resume, except for that one remix of the Elliot Rodgers letter.
Oh my God.
That he made into poetry.
Yes.
You can find that anywhere.
That's how he snagged the writing job.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Mike Dicta, America's best named legal podcast. I am your host, Charles Starr. We've got another cast of 5 from all around the country today to discuss various topics in the news. From the District of Columbia, we've got Adam, whose Twitter handle I am not going to pronounce.
Hey folks, it's Adam. I am at Ale Le Boule, or Go Bullets.
There you go. That's why I won't pronounce it, because it's French. From Cheyenne, Wyoming, James, I want to say hello.
Hey folks, James at jamlarock on twitter.com, which is a website based out of San Francisco, California, as I learned this week.
From near-ish to San Francisco, California, and Long Beach, we've got Stefan.
We're actually closer to L.A.
I know. But you're closer to San Francisco than I am in Brooklyn.
This is true.
We're doing relative geography. Now just say hello.
Hi.
And potentially, if his mic is working from here in Brooklyn with me, is the hell dude, Tarik.
Hello, everyone.
The first topic we're going to take on today is Jeff Sessions winding back some of Obama's guidance in the war on drugs. If people recall, Holder and Obama had basically given something of a stand-down order to U.S. attorneys around the country in jurisdictions that had started legalizing weed, like Colorado and California's broad medical marijuana statute. And Jeff Sessions it's a kind of a weird order because he didn't tell his U.S. attorneys explicitly to go after marijuana in their states, but he did kind of say, use your own judgment, right? Like, so he kind of took the shackles off any U.S. attorney who wants to spend his own department's resources going after what would otherwise be locally legal marijuana. And so there's a lot going on there. I'm going to open the floor first to Stefan because he is the weed lawyer. Has there been any fallout for you in California yet?
No, in fact, I think that in a weird way, this is only, there are very few people who would want to put. Okay, Sessions and is so distasteful politically that it's really enabled a lot of California legislators who would be on the fence about this, or who might feel just a little uncomfortable going to bat for essentially drug dealing industry if they want it, but because Trump and Sessions have been so distasteful in the way that they've done this, as well as everything else, this is just one more issue that, especially in California, people can line up behind and experience no political fallout whatsoever. So we've already seen statements from Gavin Newsom, Javier Becerra, our own Attorney General, which is very helpful, as well as our Senator Kamala Harris, and it's prompting calls for legislation. They're akin to our sanctuary state immigration orders. So if anything, it's only further united the state behind this antagonism from the federal government. But
that's cool though. Those are all state people. Are you getting, like, I know in Colorado, the U.S. attorney for the District of Colorado basically told everyone, don't worry about it. This is not a priority for me. Like, after one of the local, I don't remember which one, but one of the Colorado congressmen who says that he got assurance from Sessions when he interviewed him before his confirmation hearing that he wouldn't change anything about marijuana, went sort of apeshit on the floor of Congress about how he was going to block other DOJ activity if Sessions didn't walk that back. And then the U.S. attorney for the District of Colorado basically said, don't worry about it. I'm not going to do anything about it.
What's dangerous, though, is that the Trump administration has lined up a brand new crop of U.S. attorneys to take over for people who are retiring in jurisdictions that have legal marijuana. I believe Massachusetts has already indicated that they could be facing a crackdown. And so there again, this is kind of an interlocking federalism issue as well, because let's say tomorrow, if the U.S. attorneys in California, for whatever reason, started to decide to crack down on what is explicitly now what we call adult use, but I think what most people would commonly know is like a recreational. If they crack down before we started rolling out, the official, local supply chain for it, it's actually be pretty easy just to be able to convert from a state level what would be adult use or recreational into purely the medicinal label, and then come under the protection of the Warbacker-Farr Amendment, which is still in place and is being renewed every time the continuing resolution comes up. And I think even Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado indicated that he was going to be doing the same thing. Where this is going to be most problematic, and where I think consumers and attorneys are really going to be seeing the most action, is going to be on the East Coast, because in those cases, the state governments were so apprehensive to popular movements to legalize that they never really matured as markets and had was in reality the biggest protection of all, which is corporatization and explicit licensing, where people were investing money and could frankly seek damages against the federal government, perhaps if there was a larger intervention. Because of that, places like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New Jersey doesn't have anything. Pennsylvania and New York, especially, there's a pretty wide open field, unfortunately, for going after their nascent markets, and the people in those areas are really going to depend on their own state actors to act as a shield against federal intervention. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, I think that a lot of the sort of animus behind this, or the motivation behind this, is sort of a signal to Trump's base, right? Like, for one of the earliest groups that really came out in support of Trump early in the campaign were policemen's unions, and he had been one of the most sort of pro law and order candidates in a long time.
We love our cops.
Yes. so it seems like also basically just a signal to state law enforcement and to police officers basically just to go weapons free on people of color.
Yeah, I mean, though it really is an interesting take on who his supporters are. I mean, to the extent that he was being supported by the kind of alt-righty libertarians as opposed to sort of other. I mean, I don't know if everyone probably remembers the Brooklyn Juggler definition of a libertarian, which was a pothead who is racist. All of the.
I don't think there's much of a political constituency behind what this is. This is actually kind of there's a group that's been mentioned a lot in here, and it's been promoted into the kind of mainstream discussion about, or just I think mainly just because press is looking for any soundbite who is in support of this, and it's a group called Smart Approaches to Marijuana. And it's smart. And David Frum's actually involved with it, And
what a piece of shit. That's worse than the Iraq
I'm already
War.
skeptical.
And Patrick Kennedy, and they have this one quack up there named Kevin Sabet who goes up there, and he's he was the one who and this is linked into like a larger issue with drug policy. We don't have a comprehensive solution to it. We only beefed up the militarization aspect of it. So what's left in terms of addiction sciences and what's, and this is very serious when it comes to things like we're talking about alternative punishments for drug users of any sort. It's based on quack science that's been with no sort of evidence-based or real accountability, and these groups are mixed in with it. So the idea of legalizing another substance and perhaps in some cases creating an alternative for people who are seeking, who don't want to be don't want to take opiates for pain management or don't want to consume alcohol for recreational purposes. That kind of sorry,
Stefan, you lost me a little. What Smart is doing? What they're advocating? What, legalizing marijuana more broadly, or like introducing like market solutions that are not marijuana to step in for marijuana?
That's pretty much it. They don't want they like the stasis where it is in terms of the substances that are on the market, in terms of where people are going to be, and then the bright line rules about what people can consume and when they're going to end up in the judicial system or anything like that. Marijuana complicates it, especially when you start using labels like medicinal, because then it's seen as akin to prescription medication, and then we have to get into whether or not this broad. I'm sorry.
Like FDA regulation once you turn it into medicine.
Exactly. It's it doesn't fit well as a drug in terms of where these folks are politically at the moment, but it's really weird to define them as a constituency because they're not strictly within the religious right. It's a lot of again addiction specialists over the last generation or so. And then a lot of, very racist people like Jeff Sessions, and that's pretty much it. That's it. That's what's holding up and I guess federalism as well. Because if you look at what Breitbart, for example, is covering it's a lot of people who for a generation ago were talking about states' rights have now gone fully on board with the idea of upholding the letter of the law, and that's it.
The letter of the law at the federal level.
Exactly. It's a respect for it's a respect for that sort of very narrow federalism. What's interesting about some of you mentioned some of the libertarian arguments behind it. The 10th Amendment, where a lot of the current states' rights people were used for defending our right to be able to pretty much blatantly violate the the Controlled Substance Act. They really would actually like a chance to get a second chance at Raich, and Gonzalez versus Raich, and overturn it, because then a whole host of other related interstate commerce issues would be undone. And, thus the legalization of marijuana would be a pathway for perhaps ending things like child labor laws at the federal level or food safety laws.
To back up a little for people unfamiliar with Gonzalez v. Raich, Gonzalez v. Raich was the Supreme Court case that essentially people thought might be a sort of conservative solution to allowing state-level marijuana by sort of treating it as a states' rights issue as to whether they could legalize it or not, which the federal government opposed because they had laws making marijuana broadly illegal as a matter of federal law, and surprising people who pretended that Scalia had integrity, and not surprising people who knew that Scalia would come down on the side of drug warriors. He did not uphold the Federalist principles and essentially considered the drug market a national market that allowed the federal government to restrict even intrastate marijuana growing and sales, that kind of kept the states from governing their own internal state commerce, even in marijuana.
Which, not to get too law school nerd, but this was right at, there was a series of decisions in the 90s where the Supreme Court was taking a look at the Commerce Clause and signaling that it was going to trim back some of Congress's very broad legislative authority. Cases about the Violence Against Women Act, gun-free school zones, things like that, where the principled conservatives were making principled decisions about capital S states, capital R rights. And they were going to roll back this precedent for basically that had been the case for 50 years, where Congress can more or less do whatever it wants because we need a legislature that can do things. And so 2003, the Gonzalez v. Raich case was really an opportunity for Scalia to prove that he really did care about states' rights and federalism and continue, and because, as Charles said, because it was a drug war issue and he didn't have principles and he was a piece of shit, he went the other way on it. But we'll have more to say about Scalia later.
It's funny because the case that Gonzalez v. Raich ended up based on was one of the cases, it's sort of this old 1800s case called Wickard v. Filburn that the Federalists despise because they were basically quotas on growing agricultural quotas across the country, and one guy who was growing wheat for his own consumption ended up subject to the quotas, and he argued that he shouldn't be because it's not a federal issue, because he was just growing it on his land and consuming it locally, and it never crossed the state lines, and because it never crossed the state lines, it wasn't a federal issue. And the rule from Wickard v. Filburn was, look, even the stuff you grow on your own land, if you don't sell it across state lines, it still affects the national market, because by not buying wheat yourself, because you've grown it yourself, you've affected the market as a whole, and so you're still subject to federal law. And that's been kind of something that has bothered Federalists for over 100 years.
And from a functional level, that's what the Cole Memo was designed to address. That was the Cole Memo in 2013. Kind of was the legal argument, the legal kind of the best decision and the best legal guidance for even people shaping legislation at the state at the local level, for seeing what would the federal government truly decide was going to be the extent of interstate commerce. And one of the guiding principles within it that really shaped where the modern do's and don'ts of marijuana law is absolutely no form of interstate commerce, obviously. And so that would mean no banking, as well as not just the ability not to be able to take your cannabis from one state to another, the very obvious form of interstate commerce.
It's very illegal. Don't do it.
Exactly. So, but just geographically, what that did was, make it so that, that the places that already kind of had a large burgeoning agricultural history with cannabis were the first to legalize and kind of push the envelope in terms of what the federal government in the Obama era was going to be pursuing. I mean, I think if you want to look at if we're really from the advice of lawyers that are looking who came into this long before I did in 2014, we're really just kind of returning to the second Bush administration, effectively, where this is going to encourage fishing expeditions by U.S. attorneys, looking to be able to establish, like, aha, you have engaged in interstate commerce. You haven't, there is our federal jurisdiction. You have done something that would kind of provide for the ability for the feds to come in and prove that, state level regulation is impossible.
I mean, but, well, at least that, though, sounds like normal federal jurisdiction. I guess I'm more worried that it would revert to an older time where they were going more to like Wickard v. Filburn.
Well, they can be literal about it. They can say you can't even use the highways, and that would cripple a modern supply chain looking to be able to bring, a very fragile agricultural commodity from a growing area to a retail area as dense as Los Angeles. If you can't use highways, if you can't use any of the streams of commerce that are connected to, federal funding, they could. I think what Sessions is doing here is taking for once in his very storied career of being terrible as a litigator, he's actually taking using the extent of his procedural power to be able to destabilize the industry. Because if you looked at this, he started at the beginning of the year hosting talks with a broad range of people from legal states, really, and stacking the deck with members of law enforcement, hoping to be able to get the justification that he would need to be able to fully recommend, the destabilization, a full, federal intervention and the non-renewal, especially of the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment. But he wasn't able to do that just because they didn't provide them the evidence that he wanted.
Hold on. What is the Rohrabacher-Farr?
So Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment is a section of the spending bill that accomplishes the same, was the landmark achievement in marijuana lobbying, where the industry association used, Dana Rohrabacher, the worst person in Congress, just a very, not somebody that you want to be associated with, but he has been our champion for the last couple of decades. And what it does is it stops the federal government from using any of its spending authority to intervene in the medical side of the business. So that's our secondary shield.
I mean, speaking of that, like there are different states that are sort of treating marijuana differently. Like, I guess California has California moved from medical only to recreational also. Like, I know Colorado allows recreational use. I mean, if they allow recreational, then I guess it doesn't matter as much. But I always felt like a weakness in the California system when it was all medical marijuana was how transparently fake the medical marijuana system was. Like, I mean, it seemed like everyone was like everyone had a doctor who would prescribe them marijuana for psychosomatic symptoms.
It was like that in Colorado too before they got recreational.
Exactly. This is actually a common thing. The first thing that it was a very intentional movement by the normal and the rest of the kind of legal minds behind legal marijuana, that the first thing you want to do is get people to feel comfortable buying in a semi-regulated market. So what you do is you introduce, in places especially that have direct democracy and the ability to be at the state level, the ability to put propositions on, you put on something that's broadly worded and really acts as a, mainly as a legal shield and advanced decriminalization, if you want to think about it, for commercial providers of cannabis, and i.e. drug dealers. So what it is, it's a lot, in California for the longest time, and we were the first to do this, is it's a limited immunity defense. And we stretch that limited immunity defense, the idea that, if you're abiding by some sort of general principles that you would be the least prioritized for criminal prosecution, that sort of idea. But we took that and we created an entire multi-billion-dollar industry behind it. And if you want to talk about the fakeness of it, that's what it really is. We've been supposedly a nonprofit model.
I guess that's what always worried me about
we fixed
right? It always felt like, not to me, but it seems like the kind of thing that will especially grate on someone like Sessions, is that like he's already predisposed to hating it, and the sort of Potemkin village of the medical cover for what is essentially just legalizing marijuana in California is exactly the kind of thing that makes it easier for him to argue that sort of medicalization is just a sham in the first place.
Well, and that makes his timing for this really just crappy on his part, because he did it a couple days after a fully, to borrow Star Wars terminology there, a fully formed and functional regulatory system from top to bottom at the state level had not only just been enacted and proposed, it was functional. It had already been rolled out. It was in its second day when the Cole memo was rescinded. So at that point, the fakeness, if you want to talk about it, or the very stretching of the legal definition to its absurdity, that had all been more or less that's scheduled for being removed entirely from the from what California, for the overt cannabis market's going to look like. And that's not to say that it's necessarily for the best, because what that happens is the professionalization and the capitalization. That means that the lumpen prolet there, the folks who have been doing this and really were doing it when it was not even a gray market, but a very criminalized market. They're now excluded entirely from this. But with corporatization means a lot more folks who are invested in it, and therefore have those potentially vested rights for suing, if major interventions happen.
Let the record reflect that no one podcast has a monopoly on mispronunciations.
Yes.
As we just got lumpen prolet out of lumpen proletariat, and that is a real innovation. I just want to let the record show that, please.
Well, the legalization and professionalization and corporatization is I think that's an interesting sort of connection to this, because to me, like, I can envision a sort of legalization scenario in the United States where we go about it in such like a half-assed and racist way that we basically push out everybody who was already in the market and selling when it was criminalized, and this new sort of corporate professional market is basically sort of just divvied up to the wealthy and folks with connections.
People have been worried about that, I think, for a really long time. I don't remember who it was. One of the big tobacco companies, R.J. Reynolds, maybe, I don't remember, but one of them, I think, tried to copyright or trademark Marley like 20 years ago, which everyone saw as like a way to brand their
mass-produced joints,
commercial mass-produced marijuana cigarettes, in it, like when they sort of saw the writing on the wall for legalization. And I think people went kind of nuts when they saw it, both because I think a lot of people weren't ready for the idea of legal marijuana on one side, and on the other side, the idea of some huge corporate entity claiming the mantle of Bob Marley to just stick on a cigarette box.
And from a regulatory level, we're at a weird portion too, because if you look at it, the rules regarding alcohol are falling apart. And we've gone from complete prohibition in the 20s to the point now where there's bubblegum flavored alcohol that explicitly, I think, kind of appeals to children, and nobody really seems to be objecting to it, as long as that steadfast rule about 21 is still there. Meanwhile, cigarette regulations have gone after the 1994 or 1995 master settlement agreement are very, very strict. I mean, they can't advertise. Their advertisement is done by centimeters, in terms of how far away it is from particular areas in the 7-Eleven now, and they can't sponsor anybody publicly that might be seen as appealing to children. Yeah. And their taxes, because we've been very effective at taxing tobacco now, to the point where smoking is gone down, But so marijuana, from a regulatory standpoint, if we do, somehow make it past, the immediate problems with Sessions, where are we going to be regulated? Are we going to be, treated as a drug and something that would be regulated akin to the FDA, or are we going to be treated as this kind of hybrid of alcohol and tobacco? I think the big questions are really going to be, if we can survive the immediate Sessions issue, and frankly, if we can inject those tax dollars into local and state coffers, because that's when we get defenses from those folks.
Well, of course, I can't talk about marijuana because in Wyoming it's a misdemeanor to be high. So, it's pretty serious. I'm not joking about that. They got so mad about not being able to charge people with possession, they made it a crime to be high. I don't know. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. That's like a Saudi Arabia level of hostility, where in Saudi Arabia, your detection in the blood is considered possession. So if you smoke before you take off, ooh, and then you're just sort of going through the Dubai airport, you can be charged with possession for a seed stuck to your shoe, which happened, or if they find it in your bloodstream, if you're being processed for something else, you'll be charged with possession. It's pretty insane.
Well, I'm in DC after they eventually figured out a way around Congressman Andy Harris trying to block implementation of legalization. It became legal to possess a recreational amount, legal to use, but not legal to sell. So we have now an array of Prop 71 compliant businesses where you can buy wonderful things like muffins or art prints, and they will come along with a gift.
That's amazing. That's a classic Final Four ticket scalping scheme. People would post on Craigslist. They would be like, for sale, Final Four official T-shirt. Comes with 4 free tickets, $1,000.
I do want to clarify. We will let you use CBD oil to treat seizures, but there's no way to get the CBD oil, and so that's the. But we won't. If we come in your house and find that you have CBD oil, we might ask how you found it, but it's not against the law.
So the only person who can use it is Kurt Eichen.
Yeah, that was part of an oil-only thing. So, Texas and a couple other states have that, and it's I think that was actually kind of that was based off of people watching a YouTube video. I mean, that's really what turned the legislators into supporting it. Not kidding.
I believe you.
How good was this video? Was this loose change for cannabis oil?
I mean, yeah, it was a little girl receiving cannabis oil and stopping some sort of with a really kind of violent seizures. And so people were just sharing it, and over the week, I mean, it was seriously a couple of months. You started seeing these really conservative states pass incredibly restrictive and, like you said, practically non-working oil-only laws.
That's pretty great. And while it does sound like a medical miracle, I also picture all of Wyoming pretending to have seizures now, like an entire plains of shaking cowboys.
Somebody told him that they wanted to. It was the next colloidal silver, and they wanted to get on the ground floor.
I mean, every state around Wyoming either has medical or recreational. Even Montana and South Dakota have medical. So we really are a holdout, and there's only 2 representatives in our 90-person legislature that even care about this. There's 2 that try and introduce a medical marijuana bill, and it doesn't even get out of committee. So we are here. We are absolutely straight edge, stay away.
That's amazing. I would have expected the sort of independent spirit of the West to be a little more free-spirited about that, but not at all.
Not
Was
at
Wyoming
all.
one of the states that sued?
That sued over what?
That sued specifically because they were surrounded by legal states and said that, you know, you're essentially causing us to be able to spend more on enforcement because we're receiving into you're crossing state lines and coming into us. And I think it was Nebraska
and Oklahoma.
I thought, Nebraska sued Colorado.
Nebraska and Oklahoma v. Colorado, and then Nebraska passed medical. So, what the fuck are you complaining about?
Stomp is the way of the walk. Stoned is the way of the walk. Well, it's the alley cat popping on a hoodie man. Some think I'm a criminal, but yo, I ain't all of that. Hit you with the baseball bat when you want to ill. Don't wanna mess around, you get fucked on the hill, bro. Kicking like a steel toe. Real slow hits from the bong make me feel like Cheech, and I'm kicking it with chong. Just like Cheech and Chong, frontin' with ice cream. Cypress Hill is here to
All
give
right.
you a nice drink.
Our second topic, we're going to move on from marijuana to a guy who could probably stand to calm down a little. Paul Manafort, still under indictment for crimes against the United States, has decided that he wants to end run his own prosecution. I believe he was charged in the Eastern District of New York. It may have been the Southern District of New York, but he does have a brownstone in Brooklyn. But he was charged in New York, but he has sued the federal government and the Department of Justice and the special counsel Robert Mueller in the District of Columbia, arguing that his entire prosecution is an overstepping of the DOJ's jurisdiction, and the entire thing should just be dismissed. I do not know why he didn't file this motion in New York. He certainly could have. He certainly could have filed it before the judge where he's being tried. He did not. He, using the Administrative Procedure Act, he is suing in D.C., asking them to essentially enjoin a different district attorney's office, a U.S. attorney's office, from prosecuting him for all of his crimes. Has everyone read the complaint? Has anyone read the complaint?
Look, he's the poster boy for small government now. We've had executive overreach for so long, and someone has to rein in the
out-of-control
DOJ.
Yeah,
what a baller move! What a big dick baller move! Just you've been arrested. You're being charged with a crime.
Criminally prosecuted.
And you decide to sue in a different state and be like, you got to tell this fucking prosecutor he can't sue me.
Who's the defendant now?
That's right. That is right.
You are the defendant, Robert Mueller. How do you like it?
In oligarchic Ukraine, defendant sues you, as they say.
Oh, what a country! What a country!
Not so much fun when the rabbit's got the gun, huh, Robert Mueller?
So he has brought a suit against the government under the Administrative Procedure Act. From what I understand, claiming that Mueller has overstepped his express authority and that the special counsel laws over time have kind of been contracted such that you need specific authority to investigate this or that. But from what I can tell, the gravamen of his argument here is that he's suggesting or has the belief that Mueller didn't get permission to go down certain roads ahead of time, but maybe rather got them afterwards.
Gravamen.
I mean, he gives a long procedural history, right? He starts with the independent counsel law, right? And he's like, the independent counsel law, everyone hated it. And even though the Supreme Court upheld it, Congress let it expire because it was garbage. And so then the DOJ just created internal regulations which kind of replicated the independent counsel law. And those regulations basically said that if there is a conflict of interest, you can appoint a special counsel, but you have to give them specific instructions. And when this special counsel, when Mueller was assigned, he wasn't given specific instructions. Like he was given specific instructions to focus on Russian interference in the election connected to the Trump campaign. But then the authorization also included a sort of really broad general clause. Let me see if I could find it. You're going to hear some rifling paper here because I didn't mark this up. Oh, boy. The appointment order was...
Yeah, I do just want to say, if this, I mean, you said gravamen in the middle there, and I love the word gravamen because it just means that, like, the core or like the real issue or like what's
the
the
baseline
problem here. Yeah, and so like we're lawyers, so we came up with an obscuring way to say the clear issue in this case, which is great to me.
The sort of lay read that I thought made the most sense was Manafort is essentially saying that because he spoke with these FBI agents and they found all these documents saying like forward regarding doing crimes, you want to do crimes, but they weren't like in a folder labeled Trump-Russia connection, that anything regarding that should be thrown out.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right. I found the broadening clause. It says that he can investigate basically anything he comes across.
Exactly.
Yeah, he just has to like check back in, right? He just has to be like, hey, by the way.
Well, but and Rosenstein said from the DOJ, he said that they've been in constant contact. They've been talking about it. In fact, once he hit upon these particular strands, he was given full authority to go down that road. But I think Manafort is trying to hit upon this highly technical argument that unless clearly before you hit upon any of these issues, you've been given the permission to hit upon these issues, you cannot prosecute me criminally for it.
That's a great thing from a criminal defense standpoint, because I'd love to have that for some of my, like weed DUI cases where it's like, look, you might have pulled me over because I was weaving back and forth on the highway, but you can't look under the seat for any reason.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's it. He tried. It's interesting as a technical argument but he doesn't even seem to say what you'd think he would say, right? The argument is the special counsel authorization said Trump-Russia stuff and anything you came across. And even if that's not okay, you would think the belt and suspenders of the fact that he asked Rosenstein and Rosenstein gave him the go-ahead would have been enough. I mean, someone pointed out that Neil Katyal, who I think was one of Obama's Solicitor Generals. What?
Acting.
Oh, was he one of the acting because he couldn't get appointed? He said that, like, if you read the guidance on the special counsel statute, it allows you to sort of do this to anyone, even if it's just to sort of strong arm them into testifying against someone else. Like, you can just, and anywhere that it's ambiguous, you can just ask the Attorney General for permission. And so, like, it seems like they've got all of their ducks in a row here, and it's almost like all he really wants is to get it in front of a judge who's going to declare the special counsel statute unconstitutional, or maybe declare that any special counsel authorization is not divisible, right? Like, if it's void from the beginning because part of the jurisdiction of the special counsel was improper, then you can't end run that by getting authorization later, right? The mandate has to be clear and the mandate had to be clear and constitutional at the time it was issued, or else none of it counts. But I don't think he's going to get his wish there. I don't even know if a judge in the District of Columbia is going to even accept jurisdiction in the case, or if he's just going to sort of abstain while the criminal charges are pending in a sister circuit.
Yeah, I mean, it's generally yeah, you're not supposed to have more than one case open about the same thing. So, like, that's not, it happens, but, like, you fucked up somewhere if that happened. So I would be surprised if the judge in District of D.C. let this go the whole way. But it would be really funny. But we're not hard up for content, so I hope he doesn't.
No, we need to credit Kept Simple for the idea that 2018 is the year of suing your haters. And this appears to be in keeping with the general theme of the Trump folks that no good lawsuit should go unfiled.
His haters. Trump is suing his haters. He just today announced Michael Cohen is suing BuzzFeed, more suing their haters over the fact that they published the dossier. And I think the one we really want to talk about today, the guy who's suing his haters the most, is the crying Nazi Chris Cantwell is suing all of his haters.
That is the smoothest transition that has ever happened on Mike Dicta.
Until right now.
I'm not even sure how to put the musical break in now. Thank you.
Just put the musical break over me. I'll just hum along with it. So Chris Cantwell is suing because he says he was arrested because a bunch of Antifa made up a bunch of bullshit about the Charlottesville rally. Even though a guy was wearing his glasses. The glasses are the most important part of a complaint ever. Does someone else want to give the background?
Yeah,
here?
so this is the farce that comes out of the tragedy of Charlotte, unlike the last episode where we had a tragedy that came out of a farce. Chris Cantwell was famous for kind of being part of that Vice documentary, talking a lot of shit about how he was a very bad and mean Nazi. After that whole shit show went down, he was sought by the police and later arrested. Turned himself in, I believe. He was held without bond for, I believe, 107 days. And as part of his attempt to get back at folks, he has sued two individuals, I believe it is, who he has identified collectively as all caps Antifa, civilly in federal court under diversity jurisdiction for making certain false statements that led to that imprisonment and detainment. And it's essentially a tort case, but it's being brought into federal court in Virginia.
Yes,
Right.
he identifies one of them as a media relations assistant to Antifa.
He also
sounds like a great job.
Yeah, it is a great job. It's technically everyone taking the Soros money is. I mean, that's just, it's not really that great a resume line because we're all PR for Antifa. The other notable thing, I mean, I think we're going to get into the complaint that he filed. We're going to tear it up a little bit, but the first thing you should know is that his lawyer.
Yes.
You just gotta do yourself a favor and Google Elmer Woodard, and just look at images. The first image is just this iconic him in like a child's Revolutionary War outfit, and he just walks around and it's just.
Right, he's got the powdered wig.
Yeah,
it's Ben Franklin cosplay, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
That's
oh
what it
my
looks
god,
like.
yeah.
Google his office too.
Yeah, his office
his-
is my
like-
favorite.
Yeah, okay.
It's like
A one-room schoolhouse on a dirt road in rural Virginia.
Yeah, after you look up Elmer Woodard, office, and the first result is it looks like an 18th century prison.
No, it's a shack in the middle of a giant parking lot, from what I can tell. It's literally my dream office. That's where I want to retire.
I was looking like I need about that much space to live in. Like honestly, just
it's a tiny house.
My bed and PlayStation. Yeah,
Elmer, it's tiny house.
Tiny house for law.
Yeah, so that is the guy who wrote this complaint, and it is characteristically just batshit. It has like old 18th century spellings of things. It's completely. It's just a joy to read.
Can somebody do a dramatic reading of the first paragraph?
I don't have it in front of me.
I have it in front of me.
This action seeks relief for the malicious prosecution of the plaintiff by the defendants and relief for their deprivation on his civil rights. Nature of the action. And so if there is anything omitted, that's Elmer, not me.
It's sick.
There's every other word is included. It's wonderful.
On humid and windless night of August 11th, 2017, diverse, spelled with no E, groups and individuals, hereinafter the Monumentals, participated.
That is, just so you know, Monumentals is Nazi code for people who do not want Confederate statues removed.
Participated in a political on public property.
God.
It goes on. They were met by a small group of revolutionary communists, socialists, and or anarchists. Hereinafter, Antifa, in all caps. Antifa was also exercising rights guaranteed by the First Amendment to the United States Constitution and the Constitution of Virginia. As is their pattern and practice, Antifas attacked the Monumentals.
Just like we all saw the fucking videos of Charlottesville. We saw everyone had their phones out. Everyone was fucking periscoping that shit. We all saw what happened.
Yeah, and it should be noted, too, that this complaint is specifically regarding the night of August 11th. So this isn't when they were confronted by, like, the Black Bloc or anything. This is just them going against that group of, like, 24 college kids.
Yeah, just like the people who surrounded them, which, if you guys remember those pictures, it was they were surrounded by tiki torch-bearing Nazis. And that's the people they're suing.
Well, we went through the whole complaint and the exhibits. And what I find so strange is, there's tweets and sort of screen grabs of YouTube videos and all kinds of things appended to this. But appended to the very end are 2 pictures of Cantwell macing these people. Though
it's very important from the complaint that it's all like the complaint. Every paragraph has like a timestamp. And like I said, the glasses really matter because I guess one of the things that one of the defendants told the police when he signed out a complaint was that his glasses had been knocked off and then he got maced and he couldn't see anything. And the complaint really spends a lot of time sort of identifying that in all of the videos throughout almost the entire interaction, the guy's glasses were clearly on, and it was a different person. Like Cantwell's like, I'll tell you who I maced, and it wasn't glasses, dude.
And the identifiers, I think,
and so it's like
shout out
it's like
too.
He's copping to a different crime, but framing it as self-defense. And the entire complaint, and I gotta say, taking all of the things as true beyond the sort of wackadoo language. He basically says that, the whole thing is 2 guys identified me and decided after the fact to lie and say, I'm the guy who hit them. Somebody hit them, but it wasn't me. And they lied and said it was me, and I ended up spending 100 days in jail because of it. And so that's why he's suing them. But
it wasn't 2 guys. It was a guy and a woman, specifically Emily Gorchensky. If you follow her on Twitter, you should. But another thing to note is that his lawyer specifically, intentionally, and purposefully misgenders Emily throughout the entire complaint.
Oh my God.
Because Emily is a trans woman. And so, fuck you, fill my hole, eat my ass, motherfucker, fuck you.
All legal jargon.
Yeah. Come to Wyoming, I'll punch you in the goddamn jaw.
Motion to have you eat my hole.
Yeah, it's important, I think, to track all the different parties in the complaint, the important persons and entities. They include people like Beanie Man, who is an adherent of Antifa. Undersleeve is another adherent of Antifa. And there's also another nemesis of Cantwell is called Wheelchair.
There's Dragon Arm, I believe.
Sensitive
Dragon
as
Arm,
always.
Is one of
Yes,
them.
Dragon Arm.
One of my favorite things in this complaint is that he describes Antifa as an organization. And let me see. It's here we go. Paragraph 8. Antifa is an organization of communists, socialists, and anarchists who seek to overthrow the Constitution of the United States. Which,
Nice.
first of all, I just want to say, you're not wrong. I hate the Constitution. But Antifa is an organization.
Right. Well, it's headed by Muhammad Markstein, as far as I was led to believe by a certain
Antifa-
documentation I saw on Twitter.
Like, and so obviously, with a whopper of a statement like Antifa is an organization, which no, it fucking isn't, idiot. But all right, he has attached Exhibit F, and there's actually two Exhibit Fs. There's F1 and F2. F1 is a screenshot of a Christopher Matthias tweet, and I don't know who that is. He's a HuffPo reporter, and it's just a screenshot of a video. So it's a screenshot of a video of a tweet, and it just says. And Antifa is here, and there's a video of people who are not in Black Bloc. They're not,
Yeah,
and
they
they're
have no
holding a
masks on.
banner. They have no masks on. You can see their fucking faces.
Yeah.
And they're just holding a banner that clearly says "No Fascist Scum," and that's Antifa. Okay, F2.
That is, in fact, the entire Antifa Constitution.
Yes.
No fascists. F2 is the full-page flyer that the fucking Avakianists put in about November 4th in the New York Times. I'm fucking serious about this.
They ruined everything.
Exhibit F2 is his proof that Antifa is an organization that seeks to overthrow the Constitution is the bullshit Avakianist cult refuse fascism thing that everyone thought was like, oh, they're going to kill all the white parents on November 4th, which
I hope Elmer subpoenas Chairman Bob.
he should.
I mean, can we throw him under the bus here? This might be the way to get rid of Chairman Bob. is
Yeah,
to get
fuck
him
you,
su-
Chairman
Yeah.
Bob. How'd you, like, it's your fault that, like, a judge in Virginia is actually going to say, oh, yeah, Antifa is an organization.
God damn it.
Incorporated in Delaware
For tax
Favorable
purposes.
tax purposes.
Yes.
It's like, I can't, the screenshot of the video in a tweet is still blowing my mind. Like,
Yes.
just, I can't imagine why you would, and it doesn't
Chef-
prove anything. It's so,
Chef kissing fingers emoji on that one.
it's,
If you want screenshots of tweets, this is just going to be a teaser for an upcoming episode. I'll give you a little more.
yeah, I mean, we'll be cutting down the tall trees.
I hate to be the guy, but you know, somewhere in here, besides the fact that there's literally no discernible case against Gorchensky and Goad, from what I can tell, is the fact that this guy was held for 107 days for macing somebody.
Should have been longer.
Yeah, though it's funny, they'll never get it dismissed before discovery, and I think he's gonna regret. He is going to regret starting down a road where he has to provide discovery to the other side. You know, like, I think he's like is probably going to be really thrilled when the case isn't thrown out, because the rules say that all inferences are made in his favor, you know, before discovery is conducted. Just the basic motion to dismiss rules.
Right.
A well-pleaded complaint will be read as if everything in it is true, and assuming everything in it is true, he's basically just alleging that a couple of people ginned up a complaint and knowingly and intentionally falsely identified him as the person who attacked them and harmed them, even though they both knew that they started it and knew that it wasn't him who hit them anyway. Like, assuming all of those things are true, he probably will not get the complaint dismissed. They probably won't get the complaint dismissed because being held without bond for 107 days for committing a violent assault on people is, exactly the kind of thing that you would expect, to be sued over.
Well,
So-
it's not just the assault. I mean, because he did. He helpfully attached the pictures of him macing people.
That's what I love about this.
So it's not just the assault. He also, he was one of the principal architects of this rally. Like the Unicorn Riot exposés have been like he got Heather Heyer killed. Rest in power. Like that's like he's a fucking murderer. So cry me some tears.
I'm not saying he's going to win the case. I'm saying he's going to win if they bring a motion to dismiss. I think he would very easily win that.
Yeah, there might need to be some discovery.
Yeah, this is actually trailing some like criminal litigation against him, and so one of the for the prong of the pleading where he says that there had been a charge against him that had been resolved in a matter not hostile to him. Basically, what it looks like what the Commonwealth's attorney did is they changed the pleading against him from the specific allegation that he had maliciously harmed Korchenski and Goad, and charged him instead with illegal use of gas, malicious. So he's still got those two charges pending against him.
For what? For just spraying randomly into a crowd, basically?
Illegal use of gas malicious. Oh, are we talking about Christopher Cantwell or are we talking about my wife, folks?
Oh, this episode's going to require a lot of editing, thanks to that joke.
So at that bond hearing, so we had we talked about how he'd been held for 107 days. I think part of why he'd been held for so long is that Elmer Woodard, representing him at the bond hearing, claimed that Chris Cantwell was just a shock jock. He compared him in his role as a podcast host of the Radical Agenda to noted Jewish comedian Jackie Mason.
Uh-huh.
And he tried to object to the use of the Vice News documentary and Cantwell himself saying, "I think Heather Heyer's death was more than justified," by saying that the video of his client speaking was hearsay.
You can't use my own words against me.
Right. You can't prove that.
Look, we're not admitting them for their truth.
Yes.
We are admitting them for the fact that he said them.
Wow, that joke is really going to land with our lay listenership.
Yes. Exactly. It's a legal definition of hearsay. Nothing funnier.
Perfect.
Yep, but it's true. But it's a funny use of hearsay, and for the defense, because it's only you can only hold it against him if. But he's a pig, and I am glad that he was in jail for 107 days, no matter what else happens. I couldn't stop laughing every time it came up in the complaint.
You just thought about it again just now.
Yep.
So, I think we've decided that we want to try to use this last segment and issue some rulings or predictions. Does anyone think that Cantwell has a case here against Korchenski and Goad?
No.
I think he has a better case than I think other people do, but I haven't, the way he, I think, characterizes Goad in particular as kind of waffling on what he told the police and the whole glasses sequence, there may be something there. I don't know. I don't think it's total bullshit, but I also don't think it'll go particularly far. I also don't think he will be at all a sympathetic plaintiff.
No.
That's another thing. At the very end of the complaint, I think one of my, actually maybe my favorite part is that it signs off with a jury demand.
Who told him that was a good idea? Roll the dice and go for the Nazi judge.
Yeah.
I think he's going to say that a jury of his peers requires that all of the jurors be Nazis.
That's right.
Oh God, I can't.
It's gonna be quite the motion practice when Godin and Gorczynski say that a jury of their peers requires that it all be black bloc.
Well, does anybody know? Do they have pro bono representation, or are they going to have to shell out of pocket for this? Because this is, as you say, probably going to at least escape an initial motion to dismiss, meaning discovery and expense. So this isn't immaterial to them.
I don't know. I don't even know if they've been served. Are they from the Charlottesville area?
Yes. Yeah. At least okay. Emily is. Yeah. So yes. Yeah. I mean, it's possible they've already been served, and it sucks. You like hearing about the wins. You like hearing that J20, the first 5 defendants, got off. But it is. I mean, we did create this whole expensive bureaucracy of people that are the only ones qualified to sign things in court. So, I mean...
Yes, us.
Yeah, us. Yeah, pay
yes,
us.
Yes, we rule.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't know, man. Milo is apparently going it alone.
That's right. That's another episode, though.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
we'll save the Milo roast for later. Goofy.
All right. So, thank you to everyone who came on the podcast today. Adam at Ale Le Boulay, James at JM Larock, Tarik at My Mentions, Stefan at Stefan_BC, and me at Ugarls, Charles Starr. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, folks.
List monitors are right with petition. I have this philosophy. Is your life worth the painting? Is this girl versus boy with different symbols? Being born is power. Scout leader, Nazi tag, this big scene. Your risk, change me hostage. Me, I'm fighting with my head. I'm not ambiguous. I must look like a dork. Me, naked with textbook poems. Found against the Nazis. The weird kind of sex symbol. In speeches that are big dance thumbs. If we heard mortar shells, we cuss more in our songs and cut down the guitar solos. So dig this big crux. Organizing the boy scout for murder is wrong. 10 years beyond the big sweat point. Man, it was still there ever without you. Coming back around. Look, we're coming together for just a second. A peek, a guess. At the wholeness, it's way too big. At the wholeness, it's way too big.